The alarm hit me before I even opened my eyes. A sharp, rising whine that meant one thing on a trade ship like ours: pressure failure. I rolled out of my bunk, grabbed my boots, and ran. My name is Daniel Ward. I work maintenance on the Halden Star, a human trade vessel docked at a massive alien station that belongs to the Zaru Ascendancy. That morning, the ship's control board was screaming about a coolant line failure 2 decks down, right beneath a part of the station I had never been allowed to enter. If that line burst, it would not just flood a corridor with gas. It would rupture a support column that held up an entire section of the station above it, a section currently packed with more than 1,000 people. I did not have time to file a request or wait for permission. I grabbed my tool bag and ran straight for the access hatch, ignoring every warning sign printed in a language I could not read. The corridor past the hatch was cold and dim, lit only by strips of blue emergency light. I could hear the hiss of gas escaping somewhere ahead, growing louder with every step. My scanner showed the pressure climbing past safe limits. If it kept rising for another 6 minutes, the seal would fail completely. I turned a corner and nearly ran straight into a wall of white light. It took me a second to understand what I was looking at. I had come out through the wrong door. Instead of a maintenance shaft, I was standing at the edge of a massive hall filled with rows of alien nobles, banners hanging from the ceiling, and 41 armored figures kneeling in perfect lines before a raised throne. On that throne sat a woman unlike anything I had ever seen. She was easily 7 feet tall, her skin a deep violet that shimmered faintly like oil on water, and her eyes glowed a soft amber that seemed to track my every movement the moment I appeared. I later learned her name was Queen Yisrael of the Zaru Ascendancy, ruler of 11 star systems and mother to no heir yet born, because on that very day she was meant to choose a husband from among the kneeling princes in front of her. I did not know any of that yet. All I knew was that the leak was getting worse, and the access panel I needed was built into the wall directly behind her throne. Every head in that hall turned toward me at once. Someone gasped. A guard reached for a weapon at his belt. I raised both hands, one still holding my scanner, and tried to explain. "I am sorry," I said, my voice echoing far louder than I wanted in that silent hall. "There is a gas leak under this floor. It could take down the whole section if I don't fix it in the next few minutes. I just need that panel behind the throne." Nobody moved. The Queen studied me the way you might study an insect that had wandered onto your dinner table, curious rather than afraid. "Explain yourself quickly," she said, and her voice had a strange power to it, like it came from somewhere deeper than her chest. I held up the scanner so she could see the numbers climbing. "This reading is pressure. This one is time. In 5 minutes that number hits 0, and something under this floor breaks. I don't know what happens after that, but I don't think either of us wants to find out." She raised one hand, and the guard who had reached for his weapon stepped back. "Proceed," she said. "But know that if you are lying to me, human, there will be no mercy for it." I was not lying. I dropped to my knees behind the throne, ignoring the stares of 41 princes who clearly thought I had lost my mind, and tore open the access panel. The pipe inside was already bulging at the seams, a thin crack running along one side like a vein about to burst. I grabbed the sealant gun from my bag and started working, my hands moving faster than my mind could keep up with. 30 seconds in, the pipe let out a high shriek and a jet of pale gas shot past my shoulder. I twisted the valve shut with one hand while pressing sealant into the crack with the other, my eyes burning from the fumes. Somewhere behind me I heard the princes murmuring, some in alarm, some in what sounded like disgust that a stranger had brought this chaos into their sacred hall. I do not have time to care what they think, I told myself, and kept working. The gas thinned. The pipe stopped shaking. My scanner beeped once, twice, and then showed a solid green line where the red warning had been. I sat back against the throne platform, breathing hard, sweat dripping down my neck despite the cold air. "It is done," I said. "The line is sealed. Nothing under this floor is going to break today." Silence again. I turned around and found Queen Yisrael looking down at me. Her amber eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with something closer to curiosity. "You entered the most sacred hall in my empire without permission," she said. "You interrupted a ceremony that has been planned for 3 years. And you did all of this while showing no fear of me at all." "I was too busy being afraid of the gas leak," I admitted. "I am sorry for the interruption. I will leave the moment I am allowed." One of the princes stood up sharply. He was tall, with silver armor and a long braid down his back, and his face twisted with anger as he pointed at me. "This is an insult," he said. "A common worker enters the hall of selection, kneels before no one, and dares to speak first to the queen. He should be removed and punished." Queen Yisrael did not even glance at him. "Sit down, Prince Aldrich," she said calmly. If this man had not acted, we would be discussing a collapsed hall instead of a broken rule of etiquette. Prince Aldrich sat, though his jaw remained tight with anger, and I noticed the way his eyes lingered on me a moment too long before he looked away. "I want to speak with this human," the Queen said, rising from her throne. "Alone." The hall erupted into hushed whispers. Guards escorted me to a smaller chamber down the hall, one lined with soft light and strange plants that glowed faintly in the corners. Queen Yseral entered a moment later, and the doors closed behind her. "You are not afraid of me," she said again, studying my face closely. "Every prince in that hall has spent his entire life being trained to appear fearless in front of me, yet I can always sense the performance underneath. With you, there is no performance. There is only a man who was busy solving a problem." I told her the truth. "I did not grow up learning your customs, Your Majesty. I did not know enough to be afraid of doing something wrong, because I did not know what wrong even looked like here. All I knew was a broken pipe and a countdown." She studied me for a long moment, and then she said something that changed everything. "I am meant to choose a husband today from 41 men who have trained their whole lives for that single moment. Every one of them arrived already shaped by the hope of being chosen. You arrived shaped by nothing except the need to stop a disaster. That is rarer than anything in that hall." I did not know what to say, so I said the honest thing again. "I do not know you well enough to accept anything more than that you are the first person all day who has spoken to me like I am simply a person, not a threat or a problem to be handled." She almost smiled, though her face did not move quite the way a human face would. "That," she said, "is exactly why I intend to keep speaking with you." Word spread through the station within hours. By the time I returned to my own ship, the corridor outside was filled with officials from different noble houses, each one trying to get a look at the strange human who had somehow caught the Queen's attention. My captain pulled me aside, his face pale, and told me that half the trade agreements our company depended on were now hanging on how I behaved in the next few days. "I did not ask for any of this," I told him. "That does not matter anymore," he said. "You are involved now, whether you like it or not." Over the following weeks, I was summoned to the palace several times, always for quiet conversations in that same glowing chamber. Queen Yseral asked me about human customs, about how we chose partners, about why I had not simply bowed and stayed silent, like anyone with sense would have done. I asked her about her empire, about the pressure she carried every day to keep 11 systems united under one crown. We argued sometimes, about small things, about big things, and I found that she listened to disagreement the way most rulers only listen to agreement. Prince Aldrich did not take any of this well. I began noticing him at the edges of my visits, watching from doorways, always accompanied by 2 or 3 guards from his home system. One evening, as I walked back toward the docking bay alone, a group of men blocked the corridor ahead of me, their faces hidden behind dark visors. "You should return to your ship and never come back," one of them said, his voice low and cold. "The Queen belongs to her own kind, not to an outsider who fixes pipes for a living." I raised both hands slowly. "I am not trying to take anything from anyone," I said. "I am only answering when I am called." "That is not your choice to make anymore," the man said, and he stepped closer. I did not have a weapon, and I was not foolish enough to think I could fight 3 trained guards. Instead, I reached into my jacket and pulled out my scanner, holding it up like it was something dangerous. "Touch me, and every camera in this corridor will show exactly what happened here," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was pounding hard enough to hurt. "The Queen will want to know who sent you." The men hesitated, glancing at each other. And in that pause, station security rounded the corner behind me, alerted by an automatic distress signal built into my scanner that I had activated the moment I sensed danger. The guards melted back into the shadows before anyone could stop them, but not before I caught a glimpse of a crest on one man's shoulder, the same crest worn by Prince Aldrich's household. I reported the encounter the next morning, and Queen Yseral's face grew hard when I described the crest. "This will not be tolerated," she said. "If Aldrich believes intimidation can decide what I choose, he understands nothing about the woman he hopes to marry." Still, the danger did not end there. A few days later, during a public gathering meant to celebrate the trade agreement between my ship's company and the Ascendancy, I noticed something wrong with the food being served near the Queen's table. A server refilled her cup with a liquid that shimmered slightly differently from the others being poured, a detail so small that most people would never have noticed. I had spent enough time repairing chemical systems to recognize an unstable compound when I saw one. "Do not drink that," I said loudly, stepping forward before I could stop myself. The hall froze. Guards turned toward me, hands moving toward their weapons, unsure whether I was the threat or the one warning against it. Queen Yseral set down her cup slowly, her eyes fixed on me. "Explain," she said. The color in that liquid is off, I said. It has a faint shimmer that does not match the other cups. I have worked with unstable chemicals long enough to recognize when something has been altered. Security tested the cup within minutes. The result confirmed a toxin, one designed to act slowly enough that no one would suspect foul play until hours later, far from that room. The server who had poured the drink was arrested on the spot, and after hours of questioning, he confessed that he had been paid by a representative of Prince Aldrich's household to slip the toxin into the Queen's cup during the celebration. The hall exploded into chaos, guards moving in every direction, nobles shouting over one another, and Prince Aldrich standing frozen at the edge of the room with the color draining from his face, as every eye in the hall turned toward him. "I did not know," he said, his voice shaking. "I would never harm the Queen. Someone in my household acted without my knowledge. Whether that was true or not, I never learned for certain, because Queen Yserol did not wait for further explanation. She rose from her seat, her voice carrying through the hall with a force that silenced every whisper. "A man tried to poison me in my own celebration hall," she said, "because he could not accept that I might choose someone he did not approve of. Meanwhile, a stranger from another world, a man who owes me nothing and gains nothing from my safety, noticed the danger before any of my own guards did." She turned toward me, and for the first time, the entire hall fell completely silent, waiting to hear what she would say next. "I did not choose a husband today because I wanted comfort, or tradition, or the approval of every noble house watching me," she said. "I have been searching for someone who sees clearly even when the room around him is filled with fear and performance. I have found that person, not among the princes who trained their entire lives for this moment, but in a man who walked into my hall with nothing but a tool bag and the honesty to speak the truth even when it was dangerous to do so." She stepped down from the raised platform, walking directly toward me, while the entire hall watched in stunned silence. "Daniel Ward," she said, using my full name for the first time. "I choose you." I stood there, unable to find any words worth saying, aware that every noble in that hall, every prince who had knelt for hours hoping for this exact moment, was now staring at me instead. Prince Aldrich was led away by guards, his household's crest stripped from his armor as he was escorted out to face judgment for the plot against the Queen's life. In the weeks that followed, I learned that choosing me had not made anything simple. There were arguments in council chambers about whether a human could hold any real position within the ascendancy. There were treaties that needed rewriting, customs that needed explaining, and long nights where Queen Yserol and I sat together, trying to figure out how two people from entirely different worlds could build something lasting between them. But every time someone questioned her decision, she gave the same answer without hesitation. On the day that mattered most, when danger was closest and every trained prince in my hall stood frozen with fear or ambition, it was the outsider who saw clearly, and acted without waiting to be told what to do. That is not something you can train a man to become. Either he already is that person, or he is not. I still work with my hands. Even now, I still carry a tool bag most days, because Yserol never asked me to become someone else just to fit the crown beside her. She said the moment I stopped being the man who noticed broken things and fixed them without waiting for permission, I would stop being the man she had chosen in the first place. Every prince in that hall had spent a lifetime waiting for a moment they believed belonged to them. I walked in with nothing but a scanner and a problem to solve, and somehow, that was enough to change everything.